Hey guys, it's Mrs. Bové. So sorry that I'm not there, but as I know I told most of you, I am in San Antonio at the conference to give my presentation for recertification. So if you're able to think of me Saturday morning around 9:30, say a prayer. That'd be really special. I'd appreciate that. But for me, in preparing you for the lesson, didn't want this day to go completely to waste. So what I've left is something with Mrs. Pittenger that's going to help you prepare for jumping into our essay when I return on Monday. So as you know, in concluding our Holocaust unit, we just finished Anne Frank and we finished Night. Those two things were stories, real memoir, diaries of individuals during the Holocaust who went through similar situations and handled their situations in two very different ways. Similar ages, eventually similar end results for both of them, but handling that situation differently and questioning really how did holding on to faith versus relinquishing it affect them, affect their situation, affect the people around them, and those are the things that we're going to be examining. But in order for us to really do that, to really decide where we want to take writing about that, you as individuals are going to have to go in and re-explore the text and remember what was said so that you can analyze and arrive at a conclusion that you're able to write about. So we're going to do a textual evidence scavenger hunt, and the purpose of this video is to provide you instructions and to answer any of the questions that I know you would probably ask, and I wanted the instructions to come from me so that you knew exactly how this was going to push forward into what we do when I return on Monday. So first, take a look around the room. I'll wait a second. You probably saw anchor charts galore, those big yellow post-it pieces of paper with big sentences written on them. What those sentences are thesis statements. The type of essay that you're going to be writing is called a comparative analysis, comparing and contrasting two things, ideas, individuals. In your case, you're doing all of the above. Comparing and contrasting Anne Frank's situation to Ellie's, her attitude to Ellie's, her end result to Ellie's, the ideas that led them to the conclusions that they arrived at, and what we need to learn from both of them. So the thesis statements that I've provided for you will not be the kind that you'll use for your whole essay. They're the ideas that you're going to have to argue one at a time as you write your essay. One of the first things that we discussed a lot in reading the Diary of Anne Frank is noticing her constantly optimistic and hopeful attitude and the way that that not only helped her through but affected those around her. So if you look around, you'll see a chart that has this sentence written on it. Anne Frank remained hopeful and optimistic throughout her time in hiding. Your goal for each of these, not just this one, for each of these that you see, is to dig back into the text and find a piece of evidence that you want to claim as you saying, I think this is the one that proves this above all others. The reason why I'm only going to need you to get one for each of you is that once you have placed your post-it note with this piece of text on this chart, it's going to be a collective. You're going to be able to gallery walk and see everybody's quotes and pick and choose what you want to use. So your contribution is going to be one. So let's talk instructions. You see this one. Anne Frank remained hopeful and optimistic throughout her time in hiding. Let's say that you get your Chromebook and you log in and you start re-going through the play and you come across a quote that you think is just great, which I did. And the quote that I saw that was really good was this one. And I know you're not going to be able to see it. I just wanted you to kind of see how I wrote it. I'll read it to you. What's the good of thinking of misery when you're already miserable? Act 2, Scene 1, line 330. I felt like this was a great piece of proof that she held this optimistic attitude, that this was her way of thinking. It's what she was saying to the people around her, and it was her belief system. So what I did is I took that, I wrote it verbatim onto the sticky note, and I cited it. you are going to be responsible for citing it yourself, which if you look at the front board, I was very sweet to you and I included how to cite both Knight and the Diary of Anne Frank so that you make sure you do it correctly. You'll also notice that I wrote my name on it. I need your name on it. This is for a grade, so I need to be able to give you your points. So make sure that you are filling out the complete quote, citing, and putting your name. Please, those 3 things must be done. So that's one option for that thesis statement. Another way that you could go about the Anne Frank ones is something that she did, not something that she said, maybe something that she did. So this is something from Act 1, Scene 2, when Peter rips his star off and wants to throw it in the fire, and she says, "It's funny, I can't throw my Star of David away. I don't know why." I wrote it, cited it, and wrote my name. And I'm going to zoom in. I know it's backwards, but I know y'all can see the little brackets, and I hope that you'll remember what that's for. Originally, the quote in the text didn't say my Star of David. It said it. It is not specific. So I wouldn't know what it you were referring to. So I put brackets and was able then to change it to my Star of David. And in doing that and sticking it to my piece of paper, you will see that now I have 2 pieces of evidence that could possibly be used in proving this thesis statement. So your job is to fill out a Post-it note for each of the 5. So you individually will have filled out 5 Post-its. 5 Post-its by the end. Okay, let's talk about the other ones that you could possibly fill out. Here's another thesis statement. Elie Wiesel abandoned his faith as the Holocaust took its toll on him. We know he did that, so let's prove it. The piece of text that I have here as an example says, "I ceased to pray. I concurred with Job. I was not denying God's existence, but I doubted his absolute justice." That is proof that he definitely abandoned God during his time of the Holocaust, cited it, wrote my name. The next one, let's talk about how we're moving forward. So not only are we trying to prove that they did hold it or lose it, but what effect did that have? So let's say that this is one of the ways you want to go in your essay. This is one of your options. Oops, backwards. Anne's faith and optimism made her time in hiding more bearable. Now, you may not agree with that, but we're still going to try to prove that. So what we have to find is evidence that it was, in fact, her faith and positivity and optimism that helped her situation. So I found a quote that says, "When I think of these good things, I'm not afraid anymore." Now, that's a good piece of evidence, because I could argue later that the fact that she kept thinking those things helped her not to be as afraid. Okay, so in Ellie's case, we need the same type of quote. We have, "Ellie's lack of hope and faith made his time as a prisoner more difficult." He definitely had difficulties, but we could prove that it was the fact that he had no hope that made it harder. So I found a quote that says, "I no longer felt anything but the lashes of the whip." So he didn't have hope or even pain left. All he had was what was happening to him in that moment. So that would be a good piece of evidence. Cited it, wrote my name on it. Okay, the last one that you'll see, I think you'll find interesting because it actually doesn't have anything to do with Anne Frank's story, Elie Wiesel's story. It has to do with humanity's story and our story of God. And it's a question that's going to ask you to really dig in and think about, what role does faith play in all of our lives? And where better to discover the answer to that question than in the Bible? Because in the essays that you write, you're going to be asked to dive in and explain what the Bible says and what our own faith teaches us about what we should do in times of tragedy and horror. So the last question you'll see around the room says, what does the Bible say about how we should handle hard times? What does our faith do for us? And so you just need to go in and find one Bible verse, or maybe a quote that you know. It might not even have to be a Bible verse that expresses our job as Christians in figuring this information out. And I chose James 1, 2 through 4, that says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, when you face trials of many kinds, because you know the testing of your faith produces perseverance." And that might be something that I choose to use in my paper to argue how we as human beings should handle faith in times of tragedy and horror. So that's your role for today. So in reviewing your job, you each individually, as you by yourself, will fill out 5 Post-it notes. You will only receive full credit if not only is the quote written in full, properly, spelled correctly, in quotation marks, but it will also be cited and your name will be on it. That is how you receive credit. Only that is how you receive credit. Then you will also need to make sure that you try your best to not repeat quotes that have already been used. So that's going to be challenging, especially for my 4th and 5th periods, but I believe in you. I really, really do. Dig deep, because we want to have a plethora of options to choose from when I come back on Monday. I just want those charts filled with quotes. Your other job is going to be to follow whatever it is that Mrs. Pittenger is asking of you. Emma Abel worked her little tushy off last Friday, color coding and organizing my Chromebooks and my Chromebook cart, and I am beyond appreciative. So I'm going to need you to stick with that formatting of that Chromebook cart, and I expect it to look just as gorgeous as it does now. I want it to look just that way, or not only will you face my wrath, but I'm going to sick Emma on you too, because I don't think she would appreciate it very much. So that's what I have for you. Feel free to rewind and replay anything that you need clarification on. Mrs. Pittenger also has my directions written out, and I've left her the examples. Don't stress too much about not repeating. If by 5th period it's just impossible, then do what you got to do. But I really want you to try hard. So go back, look through your highlighting, reread things, do your best. I miss you, I love you, and I will see you on Monday. Have a great rest of the day.